enjoy Tuesday evening. Today is Tuesday. This is the evening that we're supposed to be enjoying. And I just thought, hey, Eric, why not? Let's just go ahead and live stream a little bit this evening. Check in with the people, my friends from the internet. So that's what I'm doing. I've got, wait, what is this? Come on. You said it would be on ESPN News. Like on during oh, I see, maybe it started now. Okay, yeah, now it's on this channel. Okay, fine. So we got UNLV versus Ohio as the bowl game, 0-0 right now. I'll mute that and have it on in the background. And bring the chat up like so. Okay, that's fine. And we will see. Wow, boy's $45 million in guaranteed money. He really fucked up. That player who tried to punch at that one fan in the football game. I saw a video of it on Sports Center, and when I saw it, I was like, oh boy, that guy's gonna get in big trouble. Let's see here. Do this. Hello. Let me just deal with this real quick. There we go. Hi, Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Hi, TACERIC. Hi, something Russian dude. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I hid you briefly. Okay. Hi, Acacia. How are you? Now we've got we've got things set up properly. Okay. So yeah, I did hide you, some Russian dude, but then I unhid you after I looked at your channel. My bad. Maybe. Probably. No, I was indeed live a few hours ago. But Then Rachel had her doctor's appointment, and so I ended the stream. I took a little nap. Got a couple of Ziplocs full of tamales, huh? Nice. I am doing fine. I had a pretty uneventful day. We had to go to Merced, but we ran some errands and stuff, But pretty chill day overall. I've got plans to go to bed on the early side tonight and try to catch up on some more sleep as best I can. The errand outing was fine. Yeah, we picked up my keys from the auto shop, which had been left there for quite a long time. And then we went to the store on the way back. It was a 3-hour tour, a 3-hour trip from, we left about 9 o'clock, got back about noon. And that's a manageable length of trip, to handle, to deal with. It's not overwhelming. So, yeah, I wasn't really in the mood to leave the house at all, frankly. I was just kind of like, would have liked to have stayed home and done a couple of little things around the house and stuff, but ultimately we needed to go down there and get the stuff done before Christmas Eve. The store was kind of store was kind of crowded, but that's fine. A R.I.P. Little Scooter. I don't know who Little Scooter is, but R.I.P. Yeah, if I'm in the mood to leave the house and go on a little outing, then that's great. Then I have a different kind of attitude towards it when I'm driving about. Whereas if I don't feel like leaving the house and I have to go on errands, though, then it's just super annoying trying to. I'm just kind of in a hurry, It's not really annoying, but this morning I was devoting some energy to being careful about my mouth because I was still experiencing that sinus thing somewhat. If I wasn't careful, right? But then at the store today, I got some poly grip. I put it over that spot, so I have a little extra layer of stuff there, and this seems to have solved the problem. So that's kind of a big deal, actually. Makes me feel like I can function more normally. What did I come here to do? Right. I got glasses in my pocket, but I wanted to open up this window. Rock and roll, Powder Dusty. How's it going? Let me get my hat. It's kind of getting cold outside. The wind is blowing strong. We're going to supposedly get 2 inches of rain tomorrow, which is quite a bit of rain. I don't know. They've been promising downpours for a while. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm still active. I'm active pretty much every day, Although mostly I'm just live streaming. I used to make a lot of videos. Obviously, when I first started YouTube, they didn't even have live streaming or shorts, so I just did long form videos. But these days I just live stream, even though it's the least like productive thing I could do with the channel is live stream, but it's what I do anyway. YouTube has board shorts. Maybe it has regular shorts. I had to work and had a burnout. How's it being the most underrated typologist ever? it's it's fine. I am accustomed to my limited success. And yeah, I only really have. If I wanted to be more successful, I would. I do like cats. I have two cats. Here's one of them. Hi, Winston's mom. Has anyone ever had a paid holiday? Yeah, I've had paid holidays back when I used to work for the county, I guess. Well, that's my cat. So, I put on chat, like automatic chat moderation, because when I first started this, I thought somebody who came here might have been that guy. So I put him, I could take it off. You know, it was, it, blame myself for thinking it was because the name was some Russian guy. That was his name, some Russian guy. So I figured this got to be him, but when I went to his channel, it doesn't look like it, it's a real channel. It's got some shorts published and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, well, what happens with the automatic feature on is certain things get held, and then it'll prompt moderators to either show or hide or whatever. You watch channels where it appears that a bot gives warnings to people who are trolling or spamming. Well, this should just hold then. It should hold any questionable chats. Should prevent people from uh, copy paste, spamming. You live on fresh milk, beef, and honey. Not a lot of fiber in that diet. You might get a little backed up. Yeah. It doesn't seem to really be interfering with chat very much, so I'll just leave it on. Curious about all of the next college football playoff games that are coming up. Miami versus Ohio State should be interesting. So Miami beat Texas A&M out of the SEC. SEC had 4 teams and Big Ten only had 3. It's kind of a shame because if the Big Ten had a 4th team get in, it would have been USC. But we didn't really deserve it with 3 losses. One of them to Illinois, one of them to Notre Dame. And who was the 3rd loss to? Oregon. Miami's defense looked excellent. Yeah, I mean that Texas A&M Miami game was a real defensive struggle. So I'm looking forward to that Miami Ohio State game, and I'm sure Ohio State's going to be favored by at least 10 points, but I don't know. I was impressed with the way Miami looked. Merry Christmas to you too, and to all a good year, a good new year. Um, I'm also interested in Indiana versus Alabama. I think Indiana's gonna likely win. Eric, I've been thinking about the function's interaction with socio-political context. Do you have anything to say on that regard, like how functions are gendered? They're not gendered. There's no gendering the functions. It may be the case that society in general tends to think of certain ways of paying attention as more masculine ways of paying attention, but that has nothing to do with the cognitive functions implicitly. It just has to do with wrong stereotypes. Because like an INTP woman is going to be the same TI as an INTP man. It would be just a metaphor that doesn't mean anything to say that a function has a gender. No, it's not at all like gendering them. Conscious and unconscious have an operational definition for, right? Like the ability to remember something is like the more you remember it, the more conscious, the less you remember it, less conscious. And well, destined plea. Um, I'm sorry to hear that. You got hit by a car, huh? And they broke and femur. Oh, like your femur? Is that what you mean? That'd be a very bad break. So yeah, and instrumental or absolute value is something that's a simple binary distinction that you can make. Like unlike unlike a gender, it makes sense for somebody to value a cognitive function either as an absolute or instrumental value, whereas it doesn't make sense for us to call them a given gender because like I'm a man, I've got whatever function stack I have, and there's nothing implicit in the functions that makes them express as gendered in reality, unlike in value as values, you know. Conscious, unconscious, you got a little bit more of a point there for the way most people use it, but an equivalent actually to the gendered idea would be uh, making statements in general about extroverts or introverts would be kind of equivalent. Like those terms don't actually mean anything function wise. It just refers to whether you have an extrovert or introverted function top of the stack. So that would be kind of equivalent. It'd be hard to think of an exact equivalence, like because the concepts are unrelated to each other. You know. Okay. Well, the point is, there's no. It's like you could talk about like what kind of animals or mammals or what kind of animals or reptiles by talking about blood temperature, but you can't by talking about their 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 symbolic meaning as archetypes, right? You can't determine anything about what kind of animal they are by their symbolic meaning as archetypes. So that would be the equivalent, right? Trying to say that, well, animals aren't really nocturnal, diurnal, or twilight, whatever that one's called. Well, yeah, they are. Animals aren't really archetypes, metaphorical representations of things, correct. But they really are actually one of those three things, even if it's not a hard, fast category line, you know? I'll tell you what's masculine, my dick. It's like the most masculine part of my body. Either that or my balls. One of the two. One of the three, I guess. Meow. Do I have to watch you eat now? Aside from genders, and then I down realize and I function being generally people's shadow stack, people think that I have something dark about me because my cognitive field isn't dark for sensors. Well, it's not in the dark for sensors necessarily. I mean, half the types have NI front stack. Just because something's in third or fourth slot doesn't mean you don't have a active and conscious relationship with it. I mean, you definitely can note the communicative challenges between NI and SI people that are more stark when one of them's intuitive and the other is not. But I don't think that NI itself is perceived as dark. INFJs are unlikely to be perceived as dark. It sounds like you were in the right, Dustin Blake. So, well, it's certainly possible that women, in order to act with less resistance in the world, have to present certain cognitive functions in a different way in certain contexts. Um, but you know, it's like that's not really informative about cognitive functions per se. It might be informative about society, but those kind of general statements about how women are subject to different expectations than men. Well, I mean, I don't think they're very informative. Yeah, Putty Cat, will you stop with that? Hunter Biden is not the only reason he's even a character on your radar is because you're playing team shit. I already explained that to you. You don't listen. I'm fine, other than a broken femur. Enjoy it not to put pressure. Enjoy not to put pressure on it. Yeah, well, you should not pressure on a broken femur is probably a good idea. You should get, if the lady had insurance, you should probably get a nice payday. I would imagine. That is good news. Glad to hear the economy grew 4.3%. I mean, it's like the most common complaint you'll hear from, well, definitely don't need any more Barack Obama. He did a terrible job. Um, so it's like, you know, it is the case that stereotypically the narrative is that, like, say, women bosses need to be less authoritative in their tone or something, or they won't be able to work with men or something. I don't really think that's true at all, but like it's the case that people expect to be dealt with respectably regardless of what their gender their boss is. Another example, a couple of ENTJ female friends of mine, because they're SI polar, use their body more openly. Uh, if that were the case, that they're not aware of what messages they're sending, that'd be an FE8 thing. That wouldn't be a SI polar thing. Hi, Popovich. Well, good. Hopefully you get it. Hopefully you get footage of the accident. And the most fly guy I've seen is Ying suggesting NI doms were female more often, SE doms were male more often. Well, I mean, I don't trust Jung's speculation about population demographics any more than I trust the existing data on it from colleges that people take. Yes, sex meaning male and female. That's the proper word, actually. Gender is for language. Sex is for people. A lot of people just want to use gender because sex. No, it's not, because the thing is, the information your body gives you from an SI perspective is physical sensation information. Whereas, like, for example, there's no way that an ENFJ would not be aware of how their body is impacting the other person's perceptions or messages that are being sent. They would absolutely be aware of that. It would never happen. So accordingly, it can't be the SI polar that's responsible, right? It's got to be the FE8. If in fact you're right about anything about this, you might not have your friend typed right, etc. Yeah, so that would definitely be weak FE. It would not be SI, because being aware of how your body feels, whether you're sleepy, hungry, tired, thirsty, stuff like that, is not the same as being aware of what messages your externalizations are sending. Did you read about the terror plot that was foiled in LA? I did not read about that, no. Yeah, SI polar would be like not knowing if you're hungry or or sleepy or thirsty or whatever. Like an ENTJ, I typed one time, told me a story of how she had hurt her leg in a volleyball match, but she didn't realize she had hurt it until she figured out that the opponents were targeting one side of her, and that's how she realized she was injured in one of her legs. Like the opponents realized it before she did. So that would be SI polar. Two extreme left wing individuals were stopped from detonating weapons of mass destruction in Los Angeles. Yeah, horny is more complicated than one function, I think. I I think sex is a little bit more complicated than just any specific function. I think people engage with it differently according to their function stacks, probably, but yeah, I don't know how to answer that one exactly. SE, I think it has a lot to do with SE, but Car Venture says, "Hope you're having a wonderful day and you get some Panda Express for dinner." Well, thanks, Car Venture. We're not going to get any Panda Express. Express. How would I describe SE Polar? They're, SE Polars means they're very much stuck in the idea that actions aren't time sensitive. So there's no urgency to actually take action at any point. It's just uh, anybody who's SE Polar is a deliberator first. So they want to deliberate, and if they're SE polar, then their tool function is the talking action function rather than the real action function. That's what makes them SE polar. You're afraid of Americans? Okay. What are my thoughts on censoring two live crew? Um, I don't really have a lot of thoughts about it. I don't think that censorship of ideas we don't like is a good idea. Certainly not legislated censorship, but at the same time, we do have some community standards that I think in general would cause us to be less, a little bit less like reflexively defensive of free speech. Ever heard David Bowie? I'm afraid of Americans. No, I never have. Trouble initiating action even when the desire or intention is there. It's a good way to describe SE Polar. Could you compare SE7 to SE4? Yeah, I mean SE4 has a much more conscious relationship with doing things. Like, for example, if I say to Rachel, I'm gonna go to the store, you wanna go with me? And she's in bed and she's like, yeah, I do wanna go. She'll get up and be ready to go in like 10, 15 minutes. Lickety split. She has some kind of a consistent schedule about doing the laundry and stuff. She always gets to things in a pretty quick. Um, Pretty quick. Are ISTJs least talkative SINE front stack type? What do you think? Um, Possibly. Who else could it be? I mean, well, that's incorrect. Hume was incorrect about plenty of things. Fourth law function is if by shadow you mean backstack or unconscious, then no, fourth is not. There is kind of a split relationship with 4-5, but ISTJs can be talkative or less so depending on the ICJ, I guess. No, Jung's not a moron. Jung Jung successfully came up with all this stuff, can, as a concept. He's not TI very high up. He is TI front stack, but he's not TI high up, and so he's he's doing his ideation as an INFJ would do it, not as uh not as like a TI dome would do it or something. It's important in terms of having the concept, but it's not gonna help in terms of articulating it all correctly. Jung was full of stuff that is just NI stuff. It's not it doesn't withstand any scrutiny. But cognitive functions do withstand scrutiny if articulated properly. Fourth law is being conscious enough to know that you are bad at it and consistently have to check on it. Seventh is not even knowing you're bad at it, even when faced with the information. Well, I do believe you can learn something about your weaknesses but you also kind of have to learn about cognitive functions and also be a metacognitive type. But I certainly am more aware now of um, I'm more aware now of the challenges of being FI polar, the risks and harms of it than I used to be. When do I believe that Jung had a fight with 7 boys? Well, not really. Jung said homosexuality was atypical. Well, I guess it is atypical in the sense that it's the less common alternative. Well, our eighth slot function is, I describe it as our defensive function, also our most unconscious function, or our autopilot function. It tends to run on autopilot when it's necessary for you to do your dominant function. I wouldn't be mad in either instance. Presumably, if I had a guest over and I kept offering them food and they kept accepting it, I'd be fine with it. If they just started eating all my food without even talking to me about it, I guess it would be a little bit of a different story. Freud said humans are bisexual at birth. I mean, possibly know that. Like, what could possibly be the justification for making that claim? They're babies. Are you passively thinking about cognitive functions all the time, or do you have periods of active contemplation? No, I either am actively thinking about it or not at all. Probably. I used to think about it a lot more. I don't have a whole lot to do intellectually with the subject anymore. I mean, I get that there's more to be done, but um, it's places where either I'm stuck or I don't really think you can defend arguments or wherever whatever. So I don't really think about it very much anymore. Occasionally, when I go out in the world, if somebody's obviously displaying certain qualities of a certain type, I may say to Rachel something like, "Oh my God, that lady's so ESFJ," or something like. Not that I can really tell that easily what it is, but maybe some babies get erections. How does that make them bisexual? I'm pretty sure babies aren't anything. Sexuality is completely separate from genitals. Well, it's not completely separate from genitals, right? Does my dad think that God is real? No, my dad did not think that God was real. Babies are people. They're just an early stage of development of people. Erections are not explicitly sexual necessarily, I guess, but it's incorrect to say that sexuality has nothing to do with genitals. That's the difference between, you know, sexuality and platonic affection. You know, if we want to somehow make the word sexuality have nothing to do with actual sex, then, well, we're just destroying the meaning of words. Because we do have non sexual relationships. I mean, look, I'm not going to get offended by whatever you have to say about it. I might disagree with you, or maybe I won't, but anyway, I do get also that sexuality is an identity label. Like you identify as heterosexual or homosexual or bisexual or whatever, and that identity label has an impact on your relationships in the sense that, um, well, like it's a way to indicate which people you're potentially going to be open to dating as opposed to which people you're not. That's the most straightforward application of it, I guess. Blue chew somebody gives someone here heartburn. It doesn't give me heartburn. Of course, you don't chew it either. It doesn't cause me heartburn. Are you supposed to chew it? I just swallow it. I don't know where you're supposed to chew it. It is chewed and it turns your mouth blue. Well, I don't chew it. We don't have to chew it. It works fine if you don't chew it. Well, thank you for that, Sarah. But it's a fine topic. We talk about bland things all the time. You know, not everything has to be all fancy and explanatory. I think I'll smoke a joint, roll a joint maybe. Well, I didn't know you had that people chewed those. I was talking about social gender and you got horny. That's not what happened. What is definition of nationality? In my country, we somehow can pick what our nationality is. I mean, I don't know how you pick your nationality. You could pick your ethnicity or something like that, but you're a citizen of one nation state. That's your nationality. Oh, you mean the plural you. I see. Y'all. Oh, do you know that transnationality is a thing? Well, I know that dual citizenship is a thing. People transition to Japanese. It's ridiculous. I'm transracial, but my nationality is American. Oh, nice punt. Nice play. Wow. They uh they pinned them on the 1 yard line. I will say all this talk about Viagra makes me think maybe I should take one. No, Rachel does not bicycle. I promise to never ride a bicycle, Donald Trump. He didn't really say that, did he? Oh yeah, I'm fluidly transracial, so that's a real thing. You can be transracial. Those people don't know how to do it right. I'm doing it properly. I invented it. I did not see the brawl. No, Eric, you look like my dad, and I don't want to see you talking about your Viagra experiences. I'm not talking about my Viagra experiences. I'm just saying that I don't chew it. But I am not transnational. Okay, I'm transracial. I'm fluidly transracial, and that's fine. You can't be transnational. You can have dual citizenship, or you can have single citizenship. Lady, protest this too much. I don't know who's protesting too much about what. Well, I mean, I'm sometimes Korean, but the important thing is if you're trying to change the race to just be one other race, that's just dumb. Why not be all the races like me? Not all at the same time, obviously. Watch the video of the brawl. Well, maybe I will watch SportsCenter later or something. But I did see that big hit in the Western Kentucky versus SMU game. Mexicans have the highest testosterone out of all the races. Well, good for them. Is Mexican a race? Sure. Anything can be a race, by guy. Yeah, I heard about that pretty cat. I saw that video. When I saw the video on, I think I watched it on Sports Center. Then I said, "Oh, that guy's gonna get in trouble." The crazy thing is, he lost out on a huge amount of guaranteed money because of that suspension. Avocados were named after testicles? Well, I hate to inform the Mexicans, but that's not the shape of a testicle. It's the shape of a pear. Yeah, I know that we did that. It's a real puss move, I tell you. But whatever. If it gets us more likely to get into the college football playoff, I guess I'm okay with it. Jalapenos were actually named after Japanese people. That's why they're so similar words. In your typing session, your TI was strong, and then you failed all your formal logic classes. I actually failed my formal logic. I didn't quite fail it. I almost failed it in college, but just because I didn't go to class, and didn't do any of the work and stuff. I taught it to myself later on. I don't know. I don't remember your typing session, so I have no way of evaluating that. If it was like a long time ago, then I am better at it now than I was then. Although if it was just like 3 or 4 years ago, I'm probably pretty equivalent. You got stream scheduled for quite a bit of time. Good, thank you. I do? No, I did not have any loans for college, but that's because my parents paid for it all. How long have Rachel and I been together for now? I think it's like 6 years or something. She's been going to train in Japan because you'll get groped. Why do you think college is so insanely expensive? Well, because it's an incredibly inefficient way to educate people. You've got all these professors on staff and all these big buildings and all this bureaucracy and stuff. With what types do I mostly like to debate? I mean, I don't like to debate, really. Uh, the thing is, the reason I don't like to debate is because for almost every substantive issue that I can think of, I I've done all the argumentational work on it. I already know what the correct positions on things are, which is to say, which arguments win the argument and why. So when people want to come in and debate with me about something, I don't want to debate them. I just want to explain to them what is the correct things about, if they say something wrong, I just correct them. I, in theory, would be willing to debate if there's some like big debate channel that would have me as a debater. I'd go do it, but I, you know, I'm a believer in dialectic, using language to figure out what's correct, not in rhetoric particularly. What is the correct position on tax policy? Well, it would depend on the level of government and what the resolutional question is. Like, um, it would depend on the question, right? But in general, the correct policy on taxation is you want taxes as flat and fair as possible. Because I didn't go and I didn't do the homework or anything. I just blew it out all the time. I still managed to pass it, but barely. Oh yeah, sure, but I don't debate because I'm always right. Debate doesn't challenge me. I don't say the debate doesn't challenge me, and I don't. I also don't say I'm always right. I say I don't like to debate because um, I think that adversarial rhetorical exchange is is not as good a way to engage what's correct as dialectic, which is just a disinterested using of language to parse things out. I mean, sure, I debate. People buy an hour, they can do with it what they want. Most people don't want to debate me. They just want to argue with me, which is different. Like the other reason I don't like to debate is because debate as it occurs on the internet is not really debate. It's just you need certain structural elements for it to be for the exchange to do anything at all. Like in a debate worth having or watching, there's actual clash, which means people are responding on point to what's being argued by the other person. On the internet, people just talk past each other. Physical action always proves what works in real time. Well, I mean, progressive taxation is absolutely a failure. It's a complete failure. Hello, Samurai Sharif. And you can easily see how it's a failure because of the infinite regression implicit in the idea of trying to make taxes more fair by making them less fair. Presidential debates are an absolute joke. Those are not debates in any sense of the word. So sometimes actual action can be a meaningful test of what works, but there are plenty of forms in which communicative action is what determines things. Yeah, well, there's a possibility Winston's on. I could do that, but I've already got another sort of project videos in mind that I'll hopefully do. Not a bad idea. Maybe I'll do that. Type anime characters that'll get more views. Possibly. Like in building and construction, there's no debate. It's just what works, unless it's a debate about getting paid, right? Because in building and construction, there's already agreement about what to do. You're trying to build this thing. And so all that's left is TESE stuff. No, debate definitely displays cognitive stack a lot, right? You can tell TI polar in a heartbeat. You can tell INTP in a heartbeat. Yeah, that's good suggestion in general. I do plan to be doing some more outcome oriented things going forward in the new year and stuff. But right now, I'm not really feeling it. I'm feeling kind of stuck in a December nightmare with all this car stuff, Hopefully, I extended the rental car for the last time today and paid the last amount of rental car fee. I stopped by the shop today and got my keys. Well, Putty Cat, I might start the wow. I did not know that, E3 Zombie. That's interesting if true. Uh, the redacted Epstein files from the government website, you can copy the redacted parts, paste them onto a new document, and you can read them. Wow, that's amazing. I'm surprised by that. When am I finishing the pond? I might, maybe after Christmas, I'll do the next step of it, which is um, I'm getting the pump I want for Christmas, but it's we're not opening our presents till Christmas, so when the pump comes, then I will probably get it running for a little while in the winter time, see how it runs. Also, get a chance to see if it freezes over or anything. And then maybe not put anything in the pond, like any fish or anything in the pond until spring. I was able to retrieve like 1,000 people's ID numbers on a list of reworked license plate numbers. I didn't know that there was a supposed letter from Epstein to Trump. Lots of weird Bill Clinton pics were released. What was the best way for ENTPs to get enough money to be able to have enough money to have a relatively comfortable life? Uh, I mean, same way anybody else does, I guess. Get a job. Get as high paying a job as you can find and make that money. I don't know. I'm not necessarily a good example. I'm not necessarily indicative of how ENTPs are about money in general because I'm a bit of a trust fund baby. Probably a lawyer would be the best job for making money for an ENTP. Prostitution, drug dealing. Zombie, you're not wrong that I need to run for office, but I gotta get my affairs straightened out a bit. Probably also lawyer is a good job for INTP. Uh, Potentially like psychiatrist or something. My psychiatrist is an INFP. So they can do it. Coder's possible, yeah, not a bad job potentially for INTP. I mean, ENTPs will never be okay with being hated. That's FE issue. FI polar is about hurting other people's feelings and stuff. That you won't notice is important until later on. Fishmonger, always a good job. Chambermaid, that's what I say in elementary school when they ask me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I'd say chambermaid. I just thought, wow, that sounds like an adventure. Emptying chamber pots. Beet farmer. YouTuber. YouTuber's a good job for ENTP if they can make money at it. I can't, but it would be a good job. I'm in theory maybe could if I tried better, but yeah, that's a big if. You can't just suddenly try better because you realize it's a good idea. Doesn't seem to work out like that. Beet juice enjoyer, university professor of language. Yeah, I mean, um, I taught conditional logic, and not at the university, but that's a good thing to teach. I also taught grammar. It's a good thing to teach for a logical thing, and I taught obviously coach debate. Good thing to do. I mean, I think ENTPs benefit most when they have more stick to itiveness. SE8 is not an easy place to have extrovert sensing. Rhythmic gymnastics person with those little things you wave around in the air like that. I think I don't know if it's a job anymore, but I think writer is a good gig for an ENTP. I was a school teacher. I wasn't really a public school teacher except when I was in special ed, but yeah, journalist would be fine if it's still a job. It kind of barely is, though. So the Georgia Bulldogs enter the quarterfinals, allowing the ninth fewest points per game in FBS. We're in the UK. It's not a thing here. He pretends to have anxiety and ADHD. Who pretends that? Do you want to go in there or what? Do you want to go in here? Is that where you want to go? Okay, maybe Rachel just let her out. I don't know. I heard scratching at the door, but I don't know what that's all about. Your ENT brother that's on welfare. Oh, well, I actually do have anxiety, and it wouldn't be wrong to diagnose me as ADHD, I guess. But who would think that that deserves money from the government? Thank you, Pinky Spirit Division. Um, hmm. Spirit Division. maybe the one of the things surviving actually is the crucial need for having a perspective and experience as a human being. You don't think journalism is dead? I missed the first part of that. No, I don't think journalism is quite dead either, but I think it's a hard field to make money in. Maybe that one of the things surviving actually because the crucial thing for having a perspective and experience with a human being. I mean, it seems like you've got mostly, like, I don't know if I'd call TV journalism really journalism, right? You got TV personalities, and then you've got people who write articles, but there's not a big market for that. What STEM field is best for NTPs? I don't know, maybe like astrophysics or physics in general would be better than, say, chemistry, which would be a bad choice. Chemistry is a lot of TESI stuff. Dude tried inviting me to his house while I was using the park restroom, and now I see everyone differently. In a good way or a bad way? Like, engineering? Engineering might not be a terrible field for NTPs, but I think by and large you probably want to get them out of the concrete, practical applications of physics. I think all random dudes in public are gay. Well, that's a strange conclusion to draw from that experience. So I got to see today California's largest burial headstone slash monument thing. It is just outside of Merced, actually, and it's called Fancher. The last name is Fancher. He was a wheat grower who was born in 1828 in New York. He died in 1900 here down there in Merced. And he had this massive fucking obelisk monument put up. Flitting, splitting. All right, Spirit Division. Well, let's see. I was thinking of division as meaning like a division of the army or something. Or platoon would be. Balloon, platoon. Or like bureau. I don't use it in those words. Um, bureau. Spirit. Wait, how about like this kind of spirit, like school pep? What would what would that be? You ever talk with your psychiatrist about functions? I mentioned them a little bit. Um, Discord could be another synonym for division. Or or something that means disagreement in general. My favorite herbivore is the thesaurus. He's not obviously going to think what I have to say about cognitive functions is informative because he's a psychiatrist, so his primary concern is drugs. Division. Hmm. Hmm. Bisect. That'd be. That wouldn't be something for division. Be the wrong form of the word. I don't know. I like drugs. I don't really do them anymore, but I like them. So, well, that's good. My favorite herb was not Albert. Yeah, I'm also not a big Herb Albert fan. My dad was. He liked a lot of terrible music. What are you gonna do? Hmm. Well, it's pleasant enough evening, I suppose. Your favorite Bunyan was Paul. There, I made the chat a little bit bigger. I can see it through the window more easily. Let's go outside for a bit. Your favorite milk is nipple. I mean, is it though? Human milk? It's a little gamey. It may seem odd, but I believe that to be the case. I mean, granted, I've only tasted one person's breast milk before, but assuming that human breast milk all tastes pretty much the same, then it's a little gamey. You might say it's the venison of milk. It's windy out tonight. Storms are blowing in. Yeah, I'm ready for the solution. Okay, should I give up? I'm not going to get it. Is Rachel my best friend? Well, sure, in practice. I mean, I spend all the time that I spend with other people is mostly spent with her in real life. You know, I do spend a little bit of time with some other people here and there, but we're together, you know, for everything, pretty much. Without Rachel, I'd be very lonely, I'm sure. Spectre sector. No, it definitely works. It absolutely works. I never would have gotten that in a million years, but it's beautiful. It's perfect. It couldn't work any better. It's perfect. That's like expert level one right there. If you were going to put together a book of those. Oh, he dropped it? Or did the DB get there in time? I kind of want to see a replay of that. No, he just dropped it. I think. The guy's arm kind of got in between him and the ball, and he must have lost sight of it for a second. It would be kind of a fun, like, puzzle book to put together, you know? A book that has very easy, medium, hard, and death level. Like Sudokus, you know? Sudokus, they come in varying degrees of difficulty. Sphincter Vestibule. The third book in the Sphincter Chronicles. So you know that in the olden days, for lots of illnesses, they used to prescribe something. People used to eat it when they were sick all the time. Something called toast water. What is toast water? It's exactly what it sounds like. Make some toast, pour some hot water on it, and you eat that. You hope I will eat dinner? I already ate dinner. I had a Marie Callender's meatloaf and potatoes and gravy dinner. It was good. It was satisfying. I was glad those Marie Callender dinners were on sale today at the store for $3.99, which is almost $2 off their price. I look healthy and sober today. I mean, I'm always sober. I have been for the last 12 years anyway. I'm not always healthy, but I haven't gotten sick in quite a long time. Well, I would agree with you that that sounds better than toast water. That is not what they did in the olden days, though. My dad was 17 and changed cities for uni. He was stranded at the student house, so he hunted down a bird in the balcony with an elastic band and random stone for decoration and ate it. He's an ISTP. Well, good for him. Oh, did I lie it all? God damn it. Backwards cigarette. thought it was funny. I mean, it sounds to me like he was in quite a bind there. I was a little bit worried about him. Oh my God, when you people type random shit, it's okay, but when I do, it's awkward. Who's saying that? Is anybody saying that? I don't. I wasn't saying that. I was just. I didn't have a big response to what you were saying. I don't know. I wasn't trying to talk any shit or anything. All right, this time let's put the cigarette in the correct direction. Inky Pinky Splitter Caesar. A splitter Caesar. Hmm. Uh, a cutter gutter? A. I mean, that doesn't quite rhyme, you know. A cutter, a splitter, huh? Hmm. Caesar. Is it an Inky Pinky? What time in history would be the best for someone like you to live in? I mean, I think this time in history. Because I can do this, you know. It's uh it's important for me to be able to engage with people by talking a lot, and this allows me to do that, you know. I've put up so many YouTube videos, either live streams or videos or shorts or whatever, like shit tons. You're gay in the opposite way? You're opposite gay? What's opposite gay? Is that just straight? Renaissance? I mean, the Enlightenment period would be better than the Renaissance, provided you were of sufficient social status to take advantage of the moment in history. Like, the biggest advantage of being in that moment in history, for example, over this one, is that you had a relatively small number of people who were engaged in, like, philosophy, literary stuff. It was much more possible for any and intuitive to of the right social class anyway to make a name for themselves in that way. Minus 1x of that. What do you put in the x? Is male to male gayness? So you're female to female gay? Is that what you're saying? Huh. Well, good for you. You guys can get a Subaru and enjoy life together. Scissoring the day away. You can get a cat. These are stereotypically things for lesbians too. Of course, we have a cat. We don't have a Subaru though. I wonder if the neighbors are coming over here to talk to me about taking care of their dog. It's not NE at all. Formal logic has nothing to do with extroverted intuition. It's pure TI. Maybe there's some extroverted intuition in proofs where you come up with multiple possible ways to do it. It's not extroverted intuition in any sense of the word. If you're defining it in a way that it is, then you're misdefining extroverted intuition. I know this because I've taught logic, for example, to an ISTP student very recently, and he picked it up very quickly, you know. And I experienced that when I used to teach it as a class too, but I didn't know about type as much back then. Well, it's not extroverted intuition. That's not what conditional logic is. If you really failed your conditional logic class because you struggled with it a lot, then you are not an INTJ. They're not going to be maybe as natural at it as, say, ENTP or an INTP, but they'll have no problem with it. The reason I almost failed mine was because I didn't go to class at all or do any work. It's too far away from reality? Well, yeah, it uses language as a definitional approach to words, right? As opposed to an expressive approach. Definitional meaning it deals with things in terms that are operationally defined, and you can determine the validity of something without even knowing any of the words in the thing being addressed. It works as a symbolic math language. No, I don't think you're saying more or less it is a waste of time. But that's not the point about it, right? It is a waste of time. I'm not quite sure. I mean, the only people who could conceivably actually use it in its formal applications are, I don't know, maybe electric circuit makers or coders potentially, depending on the kind of coding they're doing. You were diagnosed with that? There's actually somebody in the world who was actually diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. That's not a real thing at all. That's just something some horrible psychologist labeled you because you didn't agree with them. It's ridiculous. Oppositional defiant disorder. It's a joke, Eric? Oh. I get it. I get it. Like the whole time Yeah, you're not going to do anything with the info. You're just going to master the closed set mechanics of the system. It's not extroverted intuition at all, though. You're not creating anything or coming up with anything new. You're just learning the formal TI process. Extroverted intuition is an action function, a creative function. There's not a lot of school stuff that's explicitly or expressly extroverted intuition. Some somewhat red is, but like your true extrovert intuition kind of things are found in speech, like impromptu speaking is truly introverted intuition in school. Okay, well, maybe not favoring functions that make this shit ain't real, but like it is real, even though it's not something that's particularly useful for most people in life, But it's absolutely real. It's just the real mechanics of the communicative frame rather than of the experiential frame. If you're favoring experience that much over abstraction, then you know that's consistent with a variety of types. The Pac-12 still has a team in the bowl game. They have no teams remaining. They have one game and they won it. Good for them. Well, yeah, but it's but again that you're mistaking the action functions for like receiving functions. So the reason I'm comfortable with abstractions in general has almost all to do with TI and probably NI in the fifth slot, and a lot less to do with expert intuition or expert sensing. Expert intuition, granted, it takes action in the same range of stuff that NI and TI deal with. They're all communicative functions, so is FE. But but logic doesn't involve communicative action. It involves determination. Determination, uh, logic is exclusively a TI thing. It is true, for example, that an ESTP is going to be better able to pull the trigger on stuff, get it done, etc., than ENTP, but they'll both be just as good at the logic class. They'll be equivalently good at it because it's TI, not SE or any. Like my daughter's an ESTP and she finished at the very top of her logic class, had no problem with it at all, just like breezed through it. But yeah, really, logic's just TI, not TI and NI or anything. It's just TI. You might have some kind of NI knowledge of what a given answer is without being able to explain why necessarily. But that's the thing about determination is it's got to be parsed all the way. Well, okay, sir. Well, a lot of people feel very confident about whatever type they are, and people don't like it when that's called into question. But whatever. What do I care? I don't. Why do you wish you were an ESFP? TI is not a subjective function. No, I mean ISTP. What I'm telling you is ISTPs kick all kinds of ass in logic classes. So do ESTPs. They have no problem with it whatsoever. ESFPs don't necessarily have an easy life. They get pathologized a lot for being dumb, quote unquote. Why did that lady let her dog eat the whipped cream off of her drink? It's gonna get dog spit all over it. Is TE actually subjective? Well, really, there's only one function that's correctly called objective, and it's TI, and there's one function that's correctly called subjective, and it's FI. Because objectivity and subjectivity, when they're being expressed by a person, that means that person is either using a disinterested calculus or an interested calculus. We might say that other functions are objective or subjective, but what we mean is that they're communicative or experiential. Nasty? Merry Christmas, Lord Ronnie. I'm a bit of an overthinker, perhaps. That's possible. I mean, it's definitely the case. As I've said before, no good in life comes from understanding things. What do? You understand things and you explain them, and what? And then you continue to understand them more and explain them more. Well, I mean, it's overthinking from a perspective of if you want to prioritize positive outcomes or concrete outcomes in your life, then uh, NTPs are not well suited to do that in general, I think, because that requires follow through, extroverted sensing kind of action. And that's hard for us. Did I say, why do you care? I don't think I said that. Oh, I know. I said, why do I care? Right. Yeah. I said, why do I care? Why should I? Yeah, why am I caring about this? I don't want to, like, what I have to offer in general is correctness. But if somebody doesn't want my correctness, um, then why am I trying to offer them something they don't want? Right, but I don't want to argue with you about your type based on this what you're saying here because because it's a pointless argument to have. Like, yeah, I didn't say why do you care. I said why do I care? Yeah. But TI is not a lens aimed at the subject. It's aimed at words specifically most of the time, or other kind of symbolic relationships related to uh, statement connectives. So it's absolutely incorrect. Like I'm using TI now to correct Ian because you provide these words to parse and respond to. That's what I'm. It's like if I'm using TI in a logic class, I've been given some kind of proof to do or something, or determine the validity of some statements, and that's what I'm directing that attention to. Whereas like SI, if I'm directing my attention to myself, that would be feeling my body, for example, or feeling my feelings. Those are ways of paying attention to my subjective data. I mean, the thing is, it doesn't matter whether my attention is out loud or not, right? My attention is on some object of analysis in my head. So it's not on me. It's not about Eric, right? I'm thinking about something else. I'm not feeling my body. I'm not feeling my feelings, what's important to me. Those are subjective things. Hi, Cools. Sounds like rocket science in here, huh? Well, it's not that complicated, really, but see how people may spend all the time expressing their opinions, but their cognitive priorities outward. You're getting extroverted intuition and introverted thinking mixed up. It is not the case that ISTPs, for example, spend all their time expressing their opinions at all. They spend very little time expressing their opinions. Extroverted intuition with TI, me in particular as well, I spend a lot of time saying explaining things or whatever, right? But that's partly just Eric too. You got to remember that I I've I've spent my whole life doing this, figuring things out. I was a debater in high school. I was a debate coach, and um, I'm genuinely an outlier in that kind of work. Plus, I've spent my whole career doing that work. So the thing is, at a certain point, like I've I've done all the argumentational work because it's my way of paying attention. Plus, it's my way of self, right? So people want to talk to me about various things, and I don't know. It's not easy being me sometimes because is what I'm talking about is uh, it's something that I view as requiring a great deal of rigor, precision, and care. Other people view it as an opportunity to exchange ideas or something. I'm always open to being corrected, like, or a, a preferable argument, a preferable perspective, the one I currently have. It's just it doesn't happen very often. Because I've always been open to it, and I've always jettisoned my less good arguments for the better ones when I encountered better ones. That's a process that has cumulative rewards. It becomes a less common phenomenon the longer you do it. I guess that's partially why one of my favorite things to talk about is actually debate, even though there's not a huge market for it. Um, I like to talk about debate stuff because, first of all, people don't think they already know about it necessarily. Second of all, people don't give me any pushback about it, in part because anybody can Google the debate concepts I'm talking about and see that I'm talking correct. Debate has correctly and successfully parsed all argumentation into various labels and stuff. And and I can explain things that are informative about how to talk about things without triggering people to actually start to argue with me. Not that it's not like I am afraid to get pushback or anything. It's just adults don't like to be taught. And the other thing to remember is there are plenty of things in the universe about which I have no expertise whatsoever. I don't know anything about them, etc. Of course, I don't talk about those things. Other people do that all the time. They talk about things they don't know anything about all the time. But I don't do that. That's completely wrong, of course. That's totally wrong. So, objective data, if it's defined to mean anything at all, means data we can all reference equally. That means, for example, words that I'm critiquing, like these. In the subjective foundation, you can't contrast objective data with subjective foundation. What the fuck does that mean? Subjective data would be the alternative to objective data, and we can draw that distinction easily. It has nothing to do with anything that one uses introverted thinking on. It has to do with one's subjective feelings emotionally and one's subjective feelings physically. So I don't know why Yin is so full of shit about this, but it's like when I use the terms, I mean something specific by them. I'm not just making noise, right? I mean something actually specific when I use this term. Jung does not. People in their ways. And that's why I don't like arguing with people about things either, because we're not even arguing about anything. I'm not saying I'm arguing with anybody about this specifically, but because we can't even begin to argue because the other person isn't actually defining things in a way that is meaningful. Only certain kind of definitions count as meaningful definitions, and people want to not define things in meaningful ways and continue to talk about things that can't be meaningfully talked about unless you use meaningful definitions. It drives me insane. It's the main reason I have a great deal of consternation talking about cognitive functions, because of what I just said. Like, we can't even begin to discuss cognitive functions because the other party, whomever they are, we need to discuss first what a definition is and why they're not saying anything. It's ridiculous. It's extremely frustrating. But he's not describing his patients. He's describing a cognitive function that is best understood as a, a deliberation function that evaluates the validity and legitimacy of particularly communicative objects. So he's not describing his patients. If he's trying to describe cognitive functions by describing his patients, then he's doing a fool's errand, right? Like, but it's fine. He didn't need to do all the work himself. He just made my job more difficult because every time it was wrong, because I have to then explain why it's not correct. And if you want to call introverted thinking something other than an objective deliberation function, then we just need a different name for what we now call introverted thinking, which is the objective deliberation function. And since the other things, since it all works together when described properly just fine, it makes perfectly good sense, all the definitions work correctly and stuff. It's just a nightmare. What I articulate is correct observationally about attentional manners, that we know, deliberate, act, and interface. That is correct. That there are 4 fields upon which attention is paid. That is correct. Those things are indisputable, right? That the deliberation functions are either subjective or objective, and that they correlate with a disinterested and interested calculus. That is observationally correct. Okay. We have to therefore deal with attentional realities as they are, and we have to account for all 8 distinct ways of paying attention, right? So to the extent that Jung was right that there are 2 introverted deliberation functions, although he didn't call them that, well, the only possible bisection of it that makes any sense is interested, disinterested. But, I've been banging my head against this wall for too long. I've been banging my head against a lot of walls for too long, trying to sell a product no one wants. Well, I mean, the thing is, Sarah, I've got tons of actual experimental data to refer to as well that validate consistently the conceptual framework from which I'm working, even though there are falsification predictions. There are predictions that could falsify. So the idea that this is just some sort of happened upon idea that was revealed to me in the desert is insane. It took me years to refine away things that proved to be false, right? But the thing is, I don't want to have to do the work not only of making the case, but first making the case for how cases ought to be made and why this is an example of such a thing for which a case ought to be made in this way. It's like it's too much work for me to do over and over and over again that doesn't do any good, because the thing is, if people are evaluating statements about typology by their defensibility, by their internal consistency plus observational consistency plus experimental data consistency, then I wouldn't be arguing with them in the first place, right? They'd already be understanding everything I'm saying, and we wouldn't be having communication issues over this. And it's like I said, this is why I like to talk about debate. Debate's an equivalent kind of thing, right? It's observationally the case that people make these kinds of arguments and that they mechanically fit together like this. And the reason nobody says to me, oh, it sounds like it was delivered to you in the desert or something, is because everybody can Google it and find out that I'm correct about everything I'm saying. That the debate community is in broad agreement about all these concepts, right? In typology, there's no such agreement because everybody else is wrong. But debate is correct for the same reason my explication of typology is correct. It's a it's a parsing of the mechanics of it, something that actually exists, which is, say, ways of argumentation in the case of debate, or ways of paying attention in the case of personality. But, I don't want to argue about this stuff. Like I said, I don't want to argue about stuff that, like, I guess you could say I don't want the burden to affirm. Because it's like starting over all the time. But, TFB, Eric. Fair enough. TFB. I don't think we should lump Jung with them either. Jung did the job that he was able to do at the time he did it, and it was a critically important job, high peak. Um, right, yeah, I've always said, Jung was the genius who came up with the concept, etc. But it's also the case that because he's the origin of it, it's it's a frequent thing I hear about TI that drives me crazy because of all the work I have to do to explain why it's wrong. Psychic attitudes, huh? Well, I mean, in that regard, I agree with socionics as they're better described as ways of paying attention. Psychic attitudes, you know, it's like you have a unit of measurement for ways of for paying attention. It's time, right? Whereas, what could possibly be the unit of measure for psychic attitudes? I guess time as well, but attitude is a terrible word because it suggests your like emotional state, which is one way of paying attention. But it's translated, I guess, from some other language maybe. So who knows? Psychic attitudes. Oh yeah. He's all full of this collective unconscious stuff, and I don't think he really ever like ascribed any mechanism by which this thing was supposed to occur, or what it really meant, or anything. A lot of stuff he's saying is a little iffy. But yeah, if it's his translation, then dude, that's fine. I get it. Whatever he used in German or something was a fine word probably for him to use. Translated from German, the word crank is used in the NI description. I've had several German speakers explain to me how that translates to American. Huh. Crank, huh? Yeah, that would be a little curious to find out what that means, or what Jung thought he meant by it. You mean like nut job? Crank dom. Come on and dominate my crank girl all night long. Hmm. Like a quack? I mean, I'd call NI doms, um, what's the word? Mythologists, Like, if you were going to ascribe a logic to all the things, uh, you'd call TI logical, NE analogical, uh, NI mythological, I guess. FI autological, T is teleological. Anyway, mythological. No, there's no sexual modality. Dave's superpower is completely full of shit. I don't even want to get into it. He is completely full of shit. He has no idea what he's doing at all. He's the absolute most full of shit person in all of typology. The single most full of shit person in all of typology, for sure. He just made up a bunch of nonsense, and that's all he's done. Fly Guy says he knows what he's doing. He's making money off fools. Honestly, sorry, not sorry. Oh, that guy ran right into the back of him. Well, Chase is also wrong about typology, but not as wrong as Dave's superpowers. Dave's superpowers is spectacularly wrong, like mind-bogglingly wrong. And that's according to Dave's superpowers teleological frame. If it's making him money, then it's doing what it's supposed to do. But he's not interested in being correct. He's interested because he's wondering how femininity and masculinity come out within a person. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. Like, those things aren't cognitive functions. They have nothing to do with personality type. Kinetic might have something to do with like extrovert sensing in some sense or introvert sensing in some sense, but uh I clocked his SI polar on live stream. Yeah, I mean, in comparison to an actual typologist who actually knows what he's doing and can explain things, their superpower is just complete garbage. I mean, the wrongness is the villain. The the misinformation, the failure to draw distinctions between just metaphorical nonsense and actual ways of paying attention. And how in the world do you know this about Nietzsche? Is it because Dave Superpowers typed Nietzsche? Did he do any testing on Nietzsche? Those things don't mean anything. What you're saying doesn't mean anything. Like he followed the intuition, not the other way around. No, that's not. That doesn't mean anything. He paid attention in certain ways, right? Let's say he was an INTJ. That means he paid attention by receiving information first, knowledge, intuition, and then secondarily with solvency or a teleological frame. And we certainly cannot deduce anything else about his type, even if you were right that he's an INTJ, which I don't think is a terrible typing of him, but we should none of us should feel confident about typing somebody who can't actually type, and certainly we shouldn't draw conclusions that are have nothing to do with paying attention in any meaningful sense. Uh, just oh my God, just don't even. I don't even want to have this conversation. Dave's superpowers is to typology as spiritualism is to psychiatry. Psychiatry actually does real work, right? Like, if you are mentally ill, they prescribe certain drugs that actually fix you. Spiritualism is just placebo effect. Same thing with their superpowers. Any any happenstance correctnesses that he might utter are purely happenstance. He did not get there by any proper methodologies. Without music, life would be a mistake. Well, I appreciate his correctness about the significance of music, but I don't appreciate his reckless use of words to mean nothing. Yeah, he says because he and his wife agree it's objective. Yeah, I got a song about Nietzsche. Hey Nietzsche, suck my ass. That's it. That's the whole song. Okay, maybe it's not my best song ever, but it has the appropriate attitude towards Nietzsche. Nietzsche, get out of here, Nietzsche. Like everybody's all like, look at you, Nietzsche. That guy's just full of shit. Not saying anything. It's a bunch of garbage. Really, he's just kind of talking about his feelings and stuff. I'm just making up little mythologies from his life experience, turning them into totally unsubstantiated universals. Ridiculous. We should all poop on Nietzsche. If you train 100 people to say cigarette when they see the color blue, it's not scientific. Well, I mean, I I don't know what what. I see what you're saying is like getting people to agree that Mia is called Mia doesn't make Mia Mia. Well, that's fine. But see, I don't think Dave's superpower is even. It's not possible for him to meaningfully articulate things that other people will identify using that methodology because he's got all these crazy distinctions where, like, this type, there's an ISFJ who looks just like an ENP, and an ENP looks just like an ISFJ, and jumpers, and it's just insanity. What's wrong with his mustache? That part. The blacksmith and the artist must be the one to start. What the hell were you talking about? The blacksmith and the artist must be the one to start? The one to start what? And is the blacksmith and the artist the same person? To forge a new reality closer to the heart? Is that what something Nietzsche said? The blacksmith and the artist must be the one to start to forge a new reality closer to the heart? Are you talking about Nietzsche said that? That's just such, like, what does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. Oh, that's Rush. Well, I guess then instead of being bad philosophy, it's just bad lyrics. Nietzsche's stash looked like a broom. I'm not going to criticize the man for his choice of mustache. He can choose whatever mustache he wants. He'll get criticism from me where he deserves it with his silly words. Or maybe Nietzsche should have written the lyrics for Rush. Then you could combine those two bad things into one very bad thing. The key is that while gender is in all things, that doesn't mean anything. So too is the element balance relative to the masculine and feminine embodiment. That doesn't mean anything. With this, we can start perceiving feminine and masculine behavior within. Behavior within? I mean, the difference between behavior and internalizations of some sort is that they're exclusive of each other. You're just swallowing a bunch of bullshit. without thinking about whether it makes any sense. I see. Okay. Okay. See, I like things defined in a way where I can evaluate something based using your definition to determine if it's that thing or not, right? So, like, if I were to evaluate a given person's response to a question to determine if it was masculine or feminine response, what metric would I use to make that determination? You have no idea. And you don't think it even matters. Yeah, Batman is best typed as ISTJ, but you know, he's a character, so you know, he's whatever. He's not a real person, so he doesn't necessarily have one type. He's not going to be consistent with the type unless the person writing the character is both correct about cognitive functions and willfully writing the character as to be consistent with that. Occasionally, you'll get characters who are very consistent with their type, despite the fact that the writers almost certainly don't do that. But like Bob's Burger is a show that has characters that are pretty type consistent. I think that's the most type consistent show that I've ever seen, actually, is Bob's Burger. And yeah, maybe it's the case that well written characters manifest as a certain type, but I'm not necessarily sure that's the case. Like, in general, characters in books need to take more action and talk less than an accurate inclusion of like SE polar types, for example, or would allow necessarily. So if you had to write a book, what would that book be? Um, I guess it would be about typology. It's a tough book to write. Because, you know, I want it to be correct, but I don't want it to be dry. It'd be dry, probably, if it's correct. And, you know, in general, it's like, I can't personally consume my very TI content myself. Like, I find it too dull. I don't like to consume that kind of content. And most people don't. Um, I don't know. There's a lot of projects I'd like to work on. I'm not really working on any of them. Are you going outside, Kabir, or not? Well, writers, like all people, have some awareness of functions without knowing it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to write characters that are consistent with how actual people display function stacks. Like, you can think of plenty of characters who seem to have the strengths of multiple types of character. Like, um, Iron Man is often typed as an ENTP, but he seems like a kind of a cross between an ENTP and an ENTJ. If he were a real ENTP, it's very unlikely to have such good TE. I think that also that you got to think about whether the writer is FT, because I think that feeling types probably are more likely to write characters that emerge from their observations about how people are, whereas thinking types may be less likely to write characters from that perspective. But I don't really know about that. Alright. I was gonna be all like, don't eat any of Rachel's chicken strips, but now I'm gonna be all like, do eat a chicken strip. Well, presumably a visionary is anybody who has visions, right? I mean, it's usually used to mean somebody who is ahead of their time in understanding something or realizing something or putting something into effect. Oracle is more like predicting the future. That's a good quote by Carl Sagan. I like it. Hmm. Ohio beat UNLV. Mm-hmm. Eating a chicken tender is right. I mean, I agree. He seems Nick Sanchez seems like an ENTP who also has way better TE than any ENTP would have, and who also has more SE than you'd expect to see as well. So, The reason people like to type characters is because you're getting typology information from the wrong people. Hmm. Here's a highlight from the video game. One they're going to show the brawl. Um, yeah, I have the one that has a long cord on it somewhere, but I've been thinking I want to get another mic. Yeah, and I think I'm guessing he's probably gone from this point because he felt like he got what he wanted, which was some impact or something. I guess I just misinterpreted a couple of things. They were timed together in a weird way, and so I mean, behaviorism usually is meant to mean the idea that one can understand psychology through rewards and punishments. I mean, some people want to understand themselves in NI ways rather than in TI ways. I find it I only find it frustrating when people point to those NI things as reasons why I'm wrong about their type. What extrovert type has the most problems with small tasks? Probably ENTP. Well, those don't qualify as explanations, though. People might like non explanations as means of understanding quote unquote things, but um, I think it would be nice if people made the distinction between uh, explaining things and simply knowing them. Okay, I think I wrap this up. Watch a little TV, go to bed, and see you tomorrow. Did I mean animosity? No, she didn't mean animosity. She means it's like a Jungian term or something. Anyway, love you all. See you later. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.